with the pandemic, I've been structuring all of my clients to make sure that they're staying productive. And
Tell me, what do you think are the most common health issues with artists touring and their teams?
so that question comes up all the time. It really does. And I would tell you that among all the artists, and Seasons was a good depiction of that. I think that, Justin and I had troubleshot, different ways of trying to present, and his team, other team members, coming up with ideas that try to make it relatable to people. And
Yeah,
in the artist scene, it's really kind of quite hard to appreciate what an artist goes through in their teams and team members,
yeah,
because it's not fathomable for most people. But
yeah,
I would tell you that, being a brain expert, that the brain is a very fragile organ. And most people don't realize this, but it has the consistency of warm butter. So this is not like a bicep that people have been lifting weights for many years, making it bigger and stronger.
yeah,
And it's a fascinating organ. But when people are running unpredictable, exhausting schedules,
yeah,
it really pays a toll on the brain.
right.
And what people do to compensate with brain stress is they usually, because they're lacking sleep, they try to supplement things with their diets. So
Yeah,
then they tend to eat or ingest or take in, even vaping, even though we're not eating vape, but we're ingesting different types of chemicals in our bodies as interventions, as much as people don't consider it as that. And unfortunately, it ultimately over time makes the body and the brain fail.
potential prevention strategies, with alcohol and exhaustion, even loneliness. What are some of the things that you can do in the beginning, or the things that you're doing with your artists to combat that?
So we try to simulate scenarios for artists as they're getting closer to if it's going to be a tour. So
Yeah,
it's like getting kids ready for school in the summer, and now they're going to be going back to school. So we start their bedtimes at 10 o'clock, 9:30, 9 o'clock, 8:30, whatever. So that's number one. Number two is the loneliness is really a killer. Even
yeah,
in the military, most people don't realize that the most common form of trauma for military people is missing their families.
wow, it's interesting.
More
Yeah,
so than being in combat. The majority of people are not in combat. So thankfully with technology, which is how you and I are even communicating and meeting, with
yeah,
technology, we can, kind of supplement that. But I would tell you that putting artists on regimens, exercise regimens,
yeah,
eating regimens. I mean, just as an example, 15 minutes in the morning of exercise every day is almost a regular recommendation I make. I even use walking the dogs. The dogs benefit, you benefit, but your body relies on that dopamine reuptake of feeling good and feeling replenished in the morning.
yeah,
Before you walk, you drink a bottle of water. You got to hydrate your body. Most people don't hydrate their body as the first thing they do when they wake up in the morning, nor is it walking.
yeah. It's
A lot
coffee.
of people are they want to join the gym, and then they don't make it to the gym, right?
Right.
And supplements, omega-3 is a real big one. Listen, I try to sustain people in these lifestyles, but my entertainers, I start cranking down when I know that times are going to get tougher, or they're going to go on tour, or even pro athletes.
Yeah,
When they know the camp is coming up, we have to be sustaining a certain regimen in our lifestyles, and then we have to anchor down on it as it gets closer to our deadlines.
yeah, yeah. What do you think? What are the major implications if we don't do these interventions from the beginning?
I mean, some of the worst things that I've seen is
Yeah,
suicide,
right.
which is right off the top, right? And we know a number of artists, particularly in the US. I mean, we have Chris Cornell, Chester Bennington, Linkin Park. There's so many examples of people who have died who are just young and just didn't deserve to die, but they were hurting.
Yeah,
And I can't say it was because they were artists, but they were brilliant and they were very skilled, but yet hurting. So when we look at insults to the brain, suicide is usually the one that we focus on the most as being the worst.
yeah,
The next is, we see a lot of artists, and I work in the world of neuroscience as well as team management with entertainment, but we see an insult to the brain, a condition called thalamocortical dysrhythmia. So the brain has been on this lifestyle or occupational style, lacking so much sleep and
Yeah.
lacking so much nutrition and proper stress prevention
Yeah.
and then stress reduction. So basically, it's like being a pro athlete, competing every day for 5 years, or being at war, as a military person
Right.
for the last 5 years, not just being away, but being at war, bombs being dropped, sitting in a foxhole. So what ends up happening is the stress can actually cause a dysrhythmia. And for people that don't understand what that is, bipolar disorder is this type of dysrhythmia. But
Yep.
more importantly, I've had many artists who've actually suffered seizures as a result
Right.
of burning out certain channels in the brain, because the brain just not being maintenance like an engine of a car. Addiction, as you know, Nancy, addiction is,
Yeah.
see a lot of stars with addiction.
Yeah. No, it was interesting because earlier you were talking about maintaining a race car. And I feel like that's such a great analogy because there's different people on the team to keep that car in absolute perfect condition. And it's very similar, right? Because today we were talking about the team, the manager, the crew. It's just as important.
Yeah, the crew needs as much management and healthcare as
Yeah,
the entertainer. So if the parents are sick, the child will suffer.
that's
If
true.
you're on a plane that's in danger, the adult takes the air mask first, the oxygen first, and then attends to the child.
Yeah,
So that is not necessarily what I'm used to seeing when I join with new teams. A lot of times I see it where we're trying to attend to the entertainer, or what I call the talent,
yep,
and then the team continues to suffer. I can't tell you how many teams I've worked with where my initial interventions have been to de-traumatize team members because of them witnessing what entertainers themselves, the talent, have gone through. All these nights, sleepless nights, answering, looking at the phone, checking texts, just
yeah,
worrying, right? It's like your
yeah.
child. So this is tough
Sure.
stuff.
Do you ever get resistance from any of the entertainers or team players for support?
So the answer to that is yes. I would tell you that I laugh with my colleagues because it is very common that I will fly to another state or country
Yeah,
to an entertainer client of mine, patient of mine, who's really struggling. And when they hear I'm on my way, I've had them jump on a plane and go and leave their area, because they know I'm coming. And it's not because I'm tough. I'm just very accountable,
yeah,
but I need to get the people better. Ultimately, when they resist or they're leaving, what they're saying is, this is going to add stress to my already very stressed out situation.
yeah,
And I always appreciate that. And I know what that means. And I
yeah,
have a number of interventions to combat that I use. I'm not getting a lot of cooperation at the beginning unless people are mature and concerned and they have a lot to lose. And
yeah.
it's typically not the career. A lot to lose is typically kids, a
Right.
wife that they love, parents that they're very connected to, team members that value them,
Yeah,
that they would never want to let down. So when you have those type of incentives that are very organic, built into your life,
yeah,
those are huge motivators, which
yeah,
shows you, Nancy, if someone kills themselves, they really got to be hurting. I mean, this is,
yeah. Do you go on tour as well? How does that work?
so I have a model called coping and accountability for individual and team management.
Yeah,
So I triage the situation. I always treat the individual. And if I'm going to do that, I have to get a buy-in that I'm going to treat the team as well.
okay,
So I really become a manager of HR, kind
okay.
of like a health manager, if you will.
Yep,
And I use my model of teaching compensatory skills, but I investigate using a number of different types of sciences to find out what's wrong. And just as a sidebar caveat, I just had a client recently who was really struggling and became delusional. So everyone thought that my client was, becoming schizophrenic and was just psychotic. And I said to this client, how often do you drink water? And he says, I hate drinking water. I drink coffee, I drink Red Bulls. And so for 2 weeks, I had him drink 8 to 12 bottles of water a day, 16-ounce bottles.
Yeah.
And in 2 weeks, he became fully functional and stopped seeing things and was no longer acting psychotic because he wasn't dehydrated. So, when people are going to go on tour, and I know that's their lifestyle, my goal is to teach the team on how to build team efficacy, so team strength. And I train everyone from the security guards to the managers, to the assistants, to the physical therapists, you name it, the chefs, on how to build these tools and how to follow the consistency model. And I create accountability with them, because if they don't do the right thing, the entertainer will suffer. And 99% of the time, quite honestly, unless I have to fly out, and I check in, I'll go out once a week, every other week. We have now Zoom, but I don't really have to go on tour like most people would think that you would have to, because I train everyone to be interventionists using my model, which can save people a ton of money, and it's very preventive, which is the goal, right?
Yeah, makes sense. And you want them to function without you, right?
Yes.
So talking about that too. You want to teach them how to do this, so you're not there all the time.
Because what happens if I'm in the United States and they're in another country and I'm just not around? We don't want them failing.
Yeah.
I mean, as you know, this could be life-threatening. This is really serious territory for some people. And the more artists that I just meet, even casually, like everyone has an example or 50 examples of people they know in the industry that are just struggling.
I'm really excited to be able to work with you and talk about this, and hopefully deliver a really amazing program and product to people who benefit from this and use it.
Everyone knows not only what to do, but you really have a really passionate side that allows you to go in with a huge heart. And it's not all about just making money. We talk all the time. We work 1 million hours and we get paid for only a small fraction, because we're just those kind of people, right?
Right. And I interestingly, I understand a lot in this industry comes down to trust. And like, why would an artist or, why would these people trust us, me? It's really about building that relationship and knowing that there's no agenda. And literally, I'm just there to make sure this person is okay. That's it.
This is not easy territory for people like us, Nancy, but that's why you and I partnering on things is so helpful, because we're getting the same kind of effort with a couple different levels of discipline, with big hearts, with accountability to our client, because our goal is to save them, and we're doing it preventively. There's not a lot of preventive interventions or mechanisms or coping skills or things. The artist, the entertainment business is just not typical. It's different. The best preventive tool that you can get is really building the landscape of one's gut and one's brain. And then as we're building resilience in the entertainer, that talent and their team, they really become very durable.
Give us your top 2 tips to staying healthy as an artist manager in the industry. 2 or 3.
A predictable schedule.
Yeah.
Right off the bat. So we're talking food, exercise, water intake, supplements, routines, going to bed, getting up. All of that has to come together and not be deviated with time to have maybe an interruption to your schedule. We don't also want the schedule to be boring, but it really has to be routine, because that's what the brain counts on.
Yeah.
And number 2, I would tell you, is being connected with the people you love and making them first priority. Because as you and I know, when you're lonely, it's bad enough. But when you are already not as connected with the ones you love or well communicated, including your team members who become really family, it gets worse when you go on tour. So that what we call in neuroscience limbic connection is really the greatest level of resilience that you can really experience. Yeah, there's nothing that's more resilient than those who are in your court. So we can build those 2, and make those drivers, make them strong with good breathing and relaxation, people can endure a lot. Thank you for your time. I really do appreciate, the time for this. I think it's important for the world to hear.
Yeah, no, thank you.